So, we have ourselves what seems to be the final list of roster moves for the Vancouver Canucks this preseason. I say this preseason like it isn't already over for Vancouver. Their next game, which will be their first regular season game, will be taking place on Thursday against the Calgary Flames. And for me personally, I'm not going to be able to watch the game at home. I am going to be out and about on vacation, but we'll find a way. Don't worry, we will find a way to watch the game and find a way to make a video about it afterwards. So, from now until then on Thursday, we just kind of have to wait and see, wait for the injury updates to work themselves out, and analyze what it is the Vancouver Canucks look like heading into 2024-2025. Let's start out with today's morning news. PATRIK ALLVIN ended up making some roster movement to start things off. Vancouver Canucks GM PATRIK ALLVIN announced today that Akito Hirose has been assigned to the Abbotsford Canucks. And while this may not seem like a big deal, oh yeah, a guy who is not really great is going to go to the AHL, whoop-de-doo, it was a little bit concerning for Canucks fans because the reason Hirose stayed on the roster for so long is because he ended up getting placed into concussion protocol. After the hit he had sustained in the Calgary game at the end of September from Adam Klapka, the big forward on that team, Hirose ended up going into the boards pretty violently and he kind of hit his head, so there were some precautions that needed to be taken there. Now, to Hirose's credit, he ended up actually skating with the Vancouver Canucks later on, and it's kind of well agreed upon from Canucks fans, at least at this point, that because Hirose got sent down, it's good news, because he's feeling better and he does not necessarily need Vancouver Canucks medical support at this time anymore. This is also maybe the best case scenario of a move too, because with Hirose down, take a look at the amount of dollars that he would be making on the Vancouver Canucks and their salary cap here. Akito Hirose and his $787,000 would have put the Vancouver Canucks slightly over the cap. So with Hirose down, guess what? Vancouver now has $90,000 in cap space. Oh boy, yep, that's just over the amount that you need to get Canadian dental insurance here. But with $90,000 of cap room, sure, it's not the 1-point-something million that Vancouver was hoping for. But it is just barely under the salary cap, which would allow the Canucks to grab themselves some sort of an acquisition that was a little bit more expensive by the time the trade deadline rolls around. I mean, there are a bunch of other dudes that are going to be rotating around here, and by the time Dakota Joshua and Connor Garland come back, who knows what happens with Nils Åman, who knows what happens with Aatu Räty or Artyom Baines, so any one of those guys getting sent down as well would also free up some extra money for the Vancouver Canucks. It should be good enough, right? Because once one of those guys gets sent down, that's maybe $700,000, $800,000 extra that should be freed up, and you accrue that over the course of a year, and Vancouver might actually have themselves the opportunity to maybe get like a $2 million player, AAV-wise, at the trade deadline without having to shed some extra salary. And if they do end up shedding some extra salary themselves in a trade, then that just opens the door up to even more possibilities, right? They're doing all this without putting Tucker Poolman on the LTIR, which is really impressive, honestly. But yeah, as expected of the Vancouver Canucks financial management team, Emily Castonguay going out there and crunching all the numbers. We appreciate her work very, very much. When it comes to the team on the ice, though, this is what we have to work with. Brendan Batchelor tweeted out the Vancouver Canucks Saturday practice lines. So let's go out there and take a look at these. Jake DeBrusk, Elias Pettersson, Daniel Sprong, okay, not a bad line in the slightest. Danton Heinen, JT Miller, Brock Besser, again, great line. I loved Danton Heinen yesterday in the game. He was so smart. Made a lot of underrated low-key plays that just kind of facilitated play properly for the team. Hoglander, Räty, Sherwood, so there you go. Aatu Räty still sticking around there in the regular Teddy Bluger spot. And then Nils Åman, Teddy Bluger, and Artyom Baines. Okay, solid fourth line there. You also have Pia Suter, who is participating in a non-contact jersey. On defense, you've got Hughes, Hronik, Susie-Meyer, Forbort, Desharnais, Friedman, and Juleson. No surprises there. But honestly, taking a look at this team, especially when everybody comes back, I mean, when you get Suter back, you get Joshua back, you get Garland back, that's an extra line. And if you end up getting rid of Räty, Baines, and Åman as a result, you could have a third line of course, Blueger, Joshua Garland, and then a fourth line of Höglander, Suter, and Sherwood. Talk about depth. Ay, ay, ay. Some of the replies, man. People are talking about how this team is kind of stacked. And we had seen yesterday how well most of these guys played. I think only Aatu Ratu had himself a pretty noticeably bad game, quote-unquote. Everybody else was fine. And some of the guys stood out really well. Arshdeep Baines, of course. Elias Pettersson, Jake DeBrusk, of course. Danton Heinen, I thought, had a great game. JT Miller wasn't great. I'll give you that. But ultimately, the Vancouver Canucks are really putting together a team that, I don't know, man, I feel like really optimistic. I feel the best about this Vancouver Canucks team that we're seeing on paper today than I felt about any Canucks team going back to maybe like, I don't know, 2020? Nah, not 2020. The Canucks made the second round in 2020, lost to Vegas in 7 games, but then they lost to Foley, Markstrom, and Tanev in the offseason, so it didn't really feel good there. Maybe like the last time I felt this good about a Canucks team was 2015, because in that season, the Vancouver Canucks made the playoffs. They made the first round. Hank and Dank were still near the top of the NHL in points. Radim Verbata was a top goal scorer in the NHL with 30 goals. And Bo Horvat was a beast in the playoffs that year. So I was thinking like, yes, second year Horvat. And then in 2015-16, the Canucks will grab themselves Hunter Shinkarik, and he'll be brought up, and Cole Castles is so good, and that's maybe like the last time I felt really good and secure with the direction of my favorite hockey team. And then in 2016, they sucked. They were terrible the next year. They drafted 5th overall, grabbed Olli Juolevi, and passed on Matthew Tkachuk, and now we're talking about them sticking around near the bottom of the NHL for the next few years. At least they drafted Pettersson, at least they drafted Hughes, at least they traded for Miller, at least they got Podkolzin in. Yeah, it's been kind of up and down for the Vancouver Canucks ever since, and honestly, I didn't even really feel too great about the Vancouver Canucks in 2015, I just felt positive about it. Like, the expectation wasn't necessarily there in 2015 for the Canucks to be a contender, but now in 2024, it's kind of there. Oh my goodness, did I just say 2024? We're going from 2015 to 2024? It's been 9 years since then? What the hell? Ay, I'm getting old. This job is passing me by, man. So, it's been a long time, I think, since the Vancouver Canucks have iced a roster that has this level of expectations attached to it. If I had to put a label on that, I'd say maybe this is the most highly anticipated Canucks group since 2011, 2012, whatever it is. Like, and the fact is, they're not even at their best. Thatcher Demko is still hurt. Even if you have the forwards and everybody coming back, you have Blueger, Joshua, Garland all together. You have Suter suiting up there in a 4th line position. You have Baines maybe sticking around as the extra forward, as the 13th guy. Ratu and Oman gets sent down or whatever. Even if you have that, they're still not at their best without Thatcher Demko. And Artur Shilovs has been so good that who even knows if worrying about Demko is a real thing? So, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Firstly, about the roster movement from PATRIK ALLVIN, Akito Hirose addressing the concussion protocol that he was placed within and giving him his spot in Abbotsford. What are your thoughts on the Canucks roster as a whole heading into the season, and how high are your expectations for the year? Are the Vancouver Canucks a guaranteed second-round NHL team? Are they a guaranteed third-round NHL team? It's hard to predict these things because it's like, yeah, you have to literally say who's going to win the division in the playoffs after 2 straight grueling rounds of playoff action. Is it going to be Edmonton? Is it going to be Vancouver? In fact, I wanted to talk about Edmonton a little bit more in today's show. I want to go over a Mark Spector tweet from yesterday, because that seems like a very interesting topic to dive into. But either way, Vancouver hockey, yay or nay, Akito Hirose sent down. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.